Good evening, Ken. How are you?
Well, hey, Ehssan, this is nice to see you. Can you
No,
see me now?
yes, nice to see you too. Yes, I can see you. Ken, I think there is some kind of light maybe in front of your screen, maybe. So it's kind of
Okay.
it's
Well,
making
for
the.
turn that off, I had to put
Oh,
this
that's
light
much
on.
better. Much better. Thank you for
Okay,
that.
a little pop-up that shows me so I can see what you're seeing too. Okay. Well, this cool beans talking to Australia. My goodness.
That's right. It's 10 a.m. here, so it's 8 p.m. Over in Virginia. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And
Well,
I should tell you, my wife is off on the sideline here. She's interested in this too, checking this new technology out.
it's really great actually, and as we're talking, it's been recorded as well, so I can actually put it up for students to watch later on.
Okay, great. That'll be wonderful.
Yeah, so thanks again, Ken, for joining us today. I mean, we really appreciate it. So we have Mr. Kenneth Rose, the author of this wonderful book, Project Quality Management, which is a subject that I'm teaching at the University of Sydney, and the students actually use this as their textbook. So we've been using this, and so far we're up to chapter 7. So we're going through your book systematically, and the best thing about it is it's 12 chapters, and we have 12 weeks to teach. So we've got each chapter. We spend 1 week on each chapter, so it's wonderful, and it's a really nice compact book and easy to use for the students because these are undergraduate students, so they're in their second year of project management. So thank you again. Ken, and so basically the topic of today's talk is project quality management for project managers and leaders of the future. So we have young project managers obviously learning about project management, and they will later go into industry and become project managers. And so we want to know what makes a good project quality manager, and basically that's kind of what we can talk about, just casually talk about different topics on quality, yeah, so let's go like that. Yeah, how's that, Ken?
Okay, that sounds good. You have a question to start with, or was that it? The first question, what makes a good quality manager?
Okay, yeah, so the first question I have here is the important quality that a quality project manager should have in order to be able to successfully execute quality in the project.
The important qualities for a project manager?
Yes, like attributes or attitudes, skills, for instance.
Well, I think it's very important that the manager and hopefully the leader in that position, the one that's really responsible overall for quality for the project, that they be open to new things. I think so much quality stumbles, so much quality fails because people are not willing to open the door to new things. They are sort of steeped in tradition. Look, this is the way we've always done it. It's served us well for 15 years. What's the problem here? When we're kind of locked into that tradition, we just don't allow the doors to open and new ideas and new opportunities to come in. And so quality sits outside in the parking lot while we sit in our comfortable offices, in our traditional way of doing things. So I think the first thing, the quality or the attribute that a quality manager has to have is an openness to new things and an understanding that if you're doing something better, if somebody brings you a suggestion to do something better, that is not a criticism. It is not a condemnation. It is not an attack. It is not something to be afraid of. But what you're telling me that I've been doing bad, you want me to do something different? You want a quality improvement? I'm supposed to tell my bosses that I've been in charge for 3 years and we could have done better, but we didn't? No, there's got to be kind of a non-punitive organizational outlook that is open to new ideas and open to doing things better without this assumption that, well, if we do something better, it means we've been doing things bad for so long. No, things change. They get better over time. We see new opportunities. Let's just take them.
Exactly, and that actually, Ken, that fits very perfectly into what we're doing here, because we work on complex adaptive systems, and that's really based around agile methodologies and always being open to change. And it's so important because new technologies are coming. For any kind of system, we can improve the current state by just being open to new ideas. And the new ideas can come from employees, and they can come from people that might not be in charge of quality. But for a quality manager, I guess they need to be open to new ideas and accept them. So yeah, thanks for that. That's so the next question is, how important is leadership in project quality management?
Well, I think leadership is the thing that ties it all together. I can't give you a page reference for the book, but if you go to the Wheel of Quality,
yes,
that's in there.
Here it is.
That's one of the things I want people to take away from them. In fact, I kind of wish they'd put that in the Xerox machine and make a copy and stick it up on their wall someplace.
Yes.
Because that is the one-page foundation for what quality is all about. And if you look at that Wheel of Quality and look at the three things that are in there: customer focus, the variation, the continuous improvement, and then how those things all tie together, the overarching things that link two of them together. You got to realize that a wheel, an old wooden wagon wheel, it was made of pieces of an ark that were put together. But that wooden wagon wheel would fall apart when they'd start to use it if they did not put that continuous iron ring around the outside. Heat that rascal up, make it a little bit bigger, fit it over the wood spokes, and shrink it down, and now you've got that continuous ring of strength around the outside, and that's what I think leadership in an organization does. Without organizational leadership, the pieces of those things will hold together a little bit, but over time, they'll be stressed and they'll fall apart. So leadership is absolutely essential. Dr. Deming used to say that quality begins in the board. Well, he didn't say quality begins in the boardroom. He used different words, but that's the contemporary view of that. And when he would go into organizations to talk about quality, he demanded, he required that the bosses be there. Not the hands-off leaders that say, well, I have staff to do that. They assign quality to somebody else and then evaluate their performance. That's not going to get it. Leadership role is to lead from the very top, with the vision, and then provide the resources and support along the way to allow quality, to emerge and to be part of the project.
Exactly. So, considering leadership is so important, let's talk about some of the qualities of a good leader. So what are some of the qualities that a good leader must have in order to ensure that quality is always followed within the organization?
Wow, there's all kinds of books, and there's a whole school of thought on leadership, as you probably well know. And there's different approaches to leadership for different domains, in what it is. But I think there's probably two or three. I'm tempted to go back to the 1870s Prussian military view of leadership. They kind of did a 2x2 matrix looking at energy and intelligence, and both could be high or low. So now you have four options, in there. But let's not go there. Let's just talk about contemporary leaders today. I think they have to be smart, not just slick, not just the person who made it through the organizational hierarchy. I think you got to be smart, because quality is really based on a theoretical foundation. You can't just do trial and error. You can't do quality the way we used to fix cars in the 1960s. That's before we had all these computer analytic things. We used to fix cars by taking a piece off and replacing it. Well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's take another part out and replace it. And then eventually, after 6 or 8, takeouts and replacements, you finally got the car fixed. And that's not the way to do quality. You need a theoretical foundation for that. So you got to have a leader, that's smart, that can grasp that stuff and recognize, the good to the bad. We already talked about the openness, that leaders should be open to suggestion and not shoot the messenger and all the rest of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders, I think, have to be very energetic. They can't sit back and relax and let things happen and then criticize the results if they're bad or take credit if they're good. I've seen too much of that.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders have to be energetic and they have to lead from the front, not sit, as I say, and wait for things to happen and then respond to those things. Leaders, I think, have to be good team players. They're not the people that stand over subordinates with a whip and a spur, and issue directions and scream about any non-compliance. Leaders have to be team builders and bring people together in a way that will allow those members of the team to release their talents. Leaders open the door to things. I used to tell people that managers hold on. Management is holding on. Leadership is letting go. So the leader has to be strong enough to do that. They have to be strong enough to let people, sometimes they make mistakes, but that's okay. We learn so much from mistakes. So off the top of my head, I think that's about it right now.
Yeah. I love what you said. It's like, management is about holding on. Leadership is letting go. That's perfect. It's just trusting in the people that in the organization that they will do well, and they have the capacity and the intelligence to do well. It's unfortunately most managers think they need to control all their employees and micromanage them in order to perform well, whereas leaders are empowering their employees too.
And I think that comes from a fear of criticism and a fear of failure that is part of a not quality organization. Once you overcome that and you realize that your customers are the reason for your being there and providing goods and services that meet their needs and exceed their expectations, that's the goal, not just beating up on people, to maybe get a short-term gain of some sort. I was in one organization once where the president of the organization said in a meeting to a staff member, you're just like a microchip to me. I'm going to use you until you burn out, and then I'm going to throw you away and replace you with somebody else. And he thought that was a good thing to tell people. I can't imagine what he was thinking.
That's just the most terrible thing to tell someone.
But I guess he thought that would energize.
No, they probably burn out more quickly, and they have to replace them more quickly than that. Yeah, exactly. And talking about customers, how important are customers? Because there are philosophies where it says customers are always right. The Japanese way, especially, it's like customer is almost like God, and everything revolves around the customer. How important is the customer, and do we need to always, change our requirements based on the customer's needs, even when they're changing rapidly, and customers keep changing their requirements? How do we manage that in terms of quality?
Customers are so important. They are the center of the universe, not us. They're the reasons why we are in business. And I tell my government clients, they're also the reason why you exist. Government organizations tend to think that I'm going to be cynical here, there are no customers, there's only prey, P-R-E-Y. Not worry about customers. They get all the budget they want through tax dollars. You don't have to earn their money. But nowadays there's so much effort on the part of commercial contracting organizations to go into government and convince the government leaders they don't need those expensive government organizations. They can contract it out. That there's a rising competition for even government. So I think customers, whether it is public organizations or government organizations, are the center for everything. They don't always know what they want. Sometimes we have to help the customer. That's because customers generally understand only what they know. They don't look ahead for what could be. And the best example of that, if you look at your wrist, I'll bet you're wearing a digital watch. Most people,
it's
I'm
analog
not
one.
But a lot of people wear digital watches. And there was never any customer demand for that. There was never any customer requirement. The true story is the technology was developed by Texas Instruments in Texas in the U.S. They went to U.S. watchmakers and say, hey, we were doing this for different kinds of meters and machines and stuff, and we think it might make a pretty good watch. And the U.S. watchmaker says, where's the hour hand? Where's the minute hand? That's not a watch. They went to the Swiss companies, and they said the same thing, only they said it in German. And then they went to the Japanese company, and they said, I smell money. And all of a sudden we had Casio and all these digital watches. Never once did a customer demand that. So sometimes organizations have to take the lead. Sometimes you have a contract with a customer where they kind of know what they want, but they don't really. They might even say, I'm not sure what I want, but I'll know it when I see it. That old rag, we've seen that around. So we have to be very careful in working with them. We don't want to take advantage of them and sell them a bunch of gold watches, things that they don't really need, that are just more expensive, that add to that. But work with them and be a little patient with them in their changing requirements. Sometimes we have to tell them, look, there's too many changes going on here. It's going to get too expensive for you. Why don't we just fix the point where we're going to go and just do that from here, and then maybe downstream we can do something else. Otherwise, you wind up with a contract being a never-ending chase to technology with no finish line.
Exactly.
And you don't want that.
And sometimes prioritizing, saying, okay, what is the most important thing for you, and then implementing that first, and then kind of moving on to the lower priority.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, prioritizing. And the technique that I put in the book about the L-shaped matrix.
Yes, we've been using that last week.
That's a very disciplined way for prioritizing. I urge people to use that. What do we typically do in prioritizing? We go into the conference room and we sit around the table and we start thinking about, well, what does the boss want? What will make me look good? What's the quickest thing we can do with the biggest success? What's the biggest bang for the buck?
All the wrong questions.
Those might be valid, but they might not give you the right answer.
Exactly.
So, because they're all biased in some way. So if you take an unbiased approach to that, through the L-shaped matrix and then the extension to that, the full analytical criteria, you'll probably get a much happier result. It's not surprising if the result is different what you might have done anecdotally. But that's the magic of a non-biased approach. It gives you something that's clean, and then if you don't like the results, you go back and say, well, what decisions do I want to change that got us here? And you find out very quickly you don't want to change any decisions. So maybe the result that you got through a disciplined approach is the right answer.
Exactly. Excuse me, Ken. I'll just close the window because there's a bit of background noise. Just a moment. Okay, sorry, I should have done that earlier. Okay, yes, thank you for that. That's kind of, these are the questions I had written. So anything else, Ken, you'd like to share with the students of our class in terms of, how they could learn more effectively about quality and how they can apply it in their future?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to do something. Not just read about it and study about it and think about it, but to go out and apply it. Try something. And, that's kind of the plan, do, check, act sort of thing for continuous improvement. improvement.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's kind of a paradigm for life.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what kind of job you're in, or maybe you're not in a job, maybe you're just a student and that's your full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a noble job to have for a couple of years.
Sure.
But treat it like a job.
Mm-hmm.
Approach, being a student as to, what am I going to learn, over this period as opposed to how many parties can I go to?
Mm-hmm.
Parties are good too. I don't mean that. You criticize that. In fact, I used to work with some chaps from Australia, and they used to get beer from the Australian embassy. It was really, really nice, good beer, as I recall. But, do something. Don't just, plan. Do something and try it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because through the experience, you will gain confidence in the tools that you're applying. You will gain confidence in your ability to analyze and to plan and to get something done. Because, frankly, that's what your bosses are going to expect in the future.
Exactly.
So someday you're going to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go work for somebody. I mean, you might start your own business, but even if you do, you're going to be faced with the same problem. So let's get some practice at doing something and just see how it works.
Exactly, and making it a habit, like in all aspects of life, So planning, acting, and then checking, reflecting, and that's what it is, like, just reflecting on, even if people are making mistakes in their daily life, and then seeing what went wrong and how they can improve it. But that's kind of a habit that we can all develop for everything.
Yeah. I would tell your students too to beware of some of the hurdles to quality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know frankly, I don't recall if I mentioned these in the book, but there's a couple of big reasons why quality doesn't happen. We mentioned one of them already,
mm-hmm.
this fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is when you get into a commercial organization, the obsession with the bottom line can just crowd out everything else. You got to kind of learn to get around that. There's more to a quality product than just making the quarterly projections.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to that.
Exactly.
So beware of the bottom line. Watch out for failed attempts to improve being held up as a reason for not doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we tried that a couple of years ago, or we tried. Well, maybe we didn't do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
We can learn a lot from failure, just like we can learn a lot from complaining customers.
Mm.
Those are all opportunities, for us. And then, I think I mentioned this already. The big, you have all these things in place. You can overcome the hurdles. You can be really smart. But when you try to do something, you can run into the boss that says, "Well, I don't know. It sounds like you're criticizing me."
Mm.
Quality improvement is not criticism.
Mm.
Quality improvement is a way forward.
Mm.
It's a next step from the good foundation that you're on.
Mm.
It should not be taken negatively.
Exactly, and from our conversation, Ken, there's a huge element of attitude that is important in quality, in any aspect of quality, whether it's in quality of life or quality of products or quality of services. It's that openness attitude that you keep mentioning, is like, it's okay to be wrong. How can I learn from it? How can I improve? Whereas most people, it's like they either ignore failure, or they continuously repeat it, or it's just our attitude towards failure and mistakes and other people's criticism is really important, to be open and accepting and being reflective. So that's really that's a really key point, I think, and you mentioned that.
Okay.
Just one last thing. Are we okay with time?
Yeah, time's good.
Time's good. Okay.
It's only 8:30 here.
So one, you mentioned the myths of quality. Would you kindly go over, like, what are the misconceptions about quality? Like, one is like quality is not free and quality costs money, for instance.
Oh yeah, I got to tell you a short story about that. I
Yeah.
was working for an organization as a contractor a couple of years ago, and we had a webinar. Okay, we had all the people like me. The worker bees were contractors. That was their business model. Okay, that helped them control costs. So there was probably 100 of us, on this conference call. It wasn't video, but we had the opportunity to type in little questions. And one of the people, like me, typed in the question, or the comment rather, sometimes I think you put cost over quality. A number of us had been complaining about the quality of product that we were dealing with, that the company produced. And the CEO commented, well, we don't want to have that perception, but I got to remind you that quality does have a cost. He said, we could put so much quality into our products, our customers couldn't afford it. So we don't want to do that. Well, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what quality is. What he should be thinking is, we can put so much quality into our products that our customers can't afford, to not have it. Because if they don't have it, their competitors will. And his view was all the costs of adding quality. No, quality doesn't cost anything. Quality pays you back.
Exactly.
Now, sure, there are specific things that if you do more to this, you do more to that. There are quality costs, but Philip Crosby is the guy that said quality is free. He wasn't exactly right, because quality, does have some costs to associate with it. But I like his concept, is that if you do it right, your payback from customers, some of it in monetary things, some of it in customer satisfaction, some of it in being an unpaid sales representative by telling others about the great experience you had with this group. All of that stuff pays back.
Exactly.
So I don't like to see people view quality as a cost. Sure, there are costs associated with the various things you do, but quality is a payback.
Exactly.
Quality is something that earns.
Now it's interesting what you mentioned, Ken, is like the cost of quality. If you think of it in a transactional sense, then yes, it costs. But when you look at it from a holistic perspective, when customers are happy, when you've got unpaid sales representative, which it's free marketing, so you're actually saving money on marketing by having customers who are satisfied. And for instance, I would rather purchase something when a friend tells me, okay, this is really good, than watching a commercial on TV and going and buying. And that commercial probably costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for that 20 seconds of commercial, whereas my friend has just bought that product for how many dollars, and then but I'm willing to go and purchase that. And most people tend to be like that as well. So it's really going back to the how quality pays back in the long term.
Yeah, I don't have any data to support this, but I like to believe that nothing sells like a satisfied customer.
Exactly.
In your quality, going out and making a customer happy, they will tell their friends and neighbors about it. Oh boy, give them something bad, and they'll tell more about it. But give them something good. Nothing sells like a satisfied customer.
Exactly. Some research on this might be kind of useful to see, like, what percentage of people actually purchase goods based on, what their friends kind of recommend and so on.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Deming has a quote from somebody else. One of the nice things about Dr. Deming was he always gave credit to other people in his book. And when he does stuff, Out of the Crisis is the Deming book I'm referring to. When he did something, or he always gave credit to people. And there was a fellow, I think, at Sears Roebuck Company that he worked with, who made the statement that says, the goods come back, but the customers don't. That is, defective goods, or goods that don't satisfy, are returned, and the customers don't come back and buy again. They go someplace else. Now, that's one of the costs of poor quality. That can cost you a lot.
And the opposite of that, if it's good quality, the goods don't come back, but the customers do.
Sure, and they bring their friends. That's right.
Exactly. So if you're still okay with time, Ken, would you mind telling us some stories or experiences of where quality went right and where quality went wrong, and something like that, a learning lesson that the students can kind of use?
Well, I'll tell you a story about how I got hired for a job.
Mhm.
I moved to San Antonio, Texas, because I wanted to go to San Antonio, Texas.
Mhm.
I did not have a job when I got there. Now, it's a kind of city where you can bang around and not spend a lot of money. So I, 3, 4, 5 months without a job. And I was starting to get kind of desperate. I heard about somebody who was hiring. And so I called them on the telephone. Of course, I described myself in glowing terms. And they described some of their needs. And when we finished talking, I was talking to the manager of the office. He said, well, send us a resume and we'll take a look at it. So I immediately sat down and rewrote my resume so it would fit exactly what I learned in our phone call. That's the way you really write resumes. Okay?
There's
I took it down to the post office to mail it. And when I got back, there was a voicemail on my telephone. It was the manager. He said, actually, Mr. Rose, we'd be pleased if you could drop your resume off with us tomorrow. Okay.
Mhm.
So I went into the office and the secretary ushered me into the conference room. The manager came in and he had an employment contract with him. Sign here. What happened was in that hour and a half or so that it took me to rewrite my resume, they had a major product that they had delivered to their client, kicked back, returned by the client. The client said, this is garbage. Do it over. And what it was a major writing project. It was a description of the conversion of a Air Force base into a civilian air base, civilian airport in Texas.
Mhm.
And it was a couple 100 pages long. And clients just hated it. So from all my writing things that I had described, they thought I was the guy to do that.
Mhm.
Well, that product had been through their quality system. The manager of the office knew a little bit about quality. He was an ASQ member. They had quality procedures in place. They had peer reviews, and none of it worked. All of it failed because they sent this several $100,000 project to the client, and they said, do it over. So the mission I got was to do it over, and they said, now I talked to you on the phone. You go over there and use your silver tongue and get them to pay for it a second time. So, and I did that. I was successful in, but we also started to have some heart-to-heart conversations, again, non-punitive view. We are not criticizing. We didn't do anything wrong here, but what we have here now is information to act on. All quality improvement begins with data, with information. And we have information that our quality system did not work in this case. Why not? And we found out that the people that were doing the peer reviews didn't have the technical qualifications necessary, really. There was a lot of buddy-buddy stuff going on there. Kind of, I'll review your stuff and you review mine, and we won't criticize each other, and then we won't get in any trouble. There was just all sorts of things going on there that ran against, a quality organization and a quality product. I worked with another organization, 100,000 people in that organization, $6 billion in their budget. And they had a problem with performance measurement. And, that kind of tied into the quality, because here we're measuring our performance, and what they were really doing is complimenting each other, through these performance measures. They were never really identifying anything to be fixed. So I got a bunch of folks together, and we tried the Japanese thing of the 5 whys. Have you encountered that? Why? The question why, W-H-Y, ask it 5 times, and you eventually drill down to a root cause for a problem. And,
Yes.
when I tried that, the group just wouldn't drill down from 5 to 4. Everything was a restatement up at the top level. Because that's the way they understood things. They just didn't have a culture that will allow them to analyze things, again, in a non-punitive way to find out why something is fundamentally happening. It was all a restatement of the present. And that's the stuff you got to kind of get around. Maybe the point I'm trying to make here is that fear can be a pretty terrible thing. And it can be a real hurdle to or personal interest, or what's in it for me, can be a real hurdle to quality.
So again, that kind of goes to these psychological elements like fear and attitude towards failure, or I think there's a lot of psychological elements attached to quality improvement, and that's something.
It's not just fear of failure; it's fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown.
And if you think we're reinventing something here, just go back and read Shakespeare. That's what Hamlet's to be or not to be was all about. He was in a terrible situation. He knew it, but the alternative, he was contemplating suicide. He wouldn't know what would happen after that. So his choice was, I think I'll just live with what I got. And that's really psychology 101. I've worked with psychologists in my career, working with intelligent tutoring systems, artificial intelligence, that kind of thing. And one of the folks told me once he had done clinical work at a hospital. In every case when he was working with a patient where they had identified the problem, what the solution should be to make it better, the patient always chose not to do that. I know I'm in a bad situation, but at least I know what it is.
Wow.
If I do something new, if I do something different, I don't know what that outcome will be. And so that's kind of a basics of human psychology there. That reluctance to leap into the unknown. You can't do it.
Fear of the unknown.
Sometimes just take the leap, into the unknown. And if you've got those attributes we talked about, if you've got a good theoretical base, if you've got knowledge, if you've got a team around you that works together toward common goals of getting something good for the customer, it's going to be okay. And that's why I encourage your students to do something, to try something, get some experience in doing that. They will gain confidence in doing new things and doing something that's a little different.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ken, today. And we look forward to actually having all our students meet you as well at your convenience. So this will be...
Now, if we could talk about that real briefly. I told you I'd be happy to do a midnight session, on my end. If you can just figure out how to do that.
Yes, so the idea is...
You're an acrobat or something like that. If we can do something, to get together with your students at their time of 2 o'clock, I'd be happy to work through that with you.
That's very kind of you. And we look forward to that, Ken. We'll organize that shortly after our conversation today.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Well, pronounce your name for me. Is it Ehssan?
Yes, perfectly correct, yes.
Okay, great.
And thank
Ehssan,
you.
It was very nice meeting you and chatting with you, and I'll look forward to whatever is beneficial in the future.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Ken. I really enjoyed our conversation and looking forward to having another meeting with you soon. You have a nice evening.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Bye for now.
I don't know how to shut this off.
I will do it for you.
Okay,
Okay, good night.
Thank you.